Hello and welcome back to the Motorsport Baithak podcast. I'm your host GD and joining me today once again is my friend and your co-host Vedant. On this episode, we will be doing a little season recap of the F1 2021 season. So let's grab some chai, take our seats, ready our opinions and dive right into the conversation. Hello Vedant, it's been a week since the very controversial yet the most spectacular season that we have seen so far has ended. What are your thoughts? How are you feeling? And what are your impressions since we have had a little bit of time to cool down now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we needed that time to cool down and, reflect on the season we have had. And as you said, it was arguably one of the greatest seasons of Formula One racing we have ever had. And I mean, definitely the best in the turbo hybrid era since 2014, but arguably one of the best seasons in Formula One history. And yeah, absolutely. This week has, you know, helped us and like move away from the controversy that was Abu Dhabi, and with accepting the fact that Max Verstappen has become the world champion, just take the entire season and look back to it and enjoy and
Yeah,
appreciate it.
that may be you and me, but
Yeah.
still there's a portion of the community that's reeling from what happened, last week, especially since the developments that have come out. And obviously, we'll be talking about the developments that have happened over the last week, and we'll be recapping the season for you, and we'll be looking ahead a little bit to in this podcast. So yeah, before we jump into all of that, here's a little season recap. For those listening to us on YouTube, there'll be a timestamp. You can just skip it if you don't want to listen to it. For our audio listeners, I think if you skip about 5 minutes ahead, you will be fine. And if you don't want to listen to it, but yeah. I hope it brings back some of the memories of the great racing that we have this season and helps our listeners look beyond Abu Dhabi and maybe Jeddah and really take into stride what a great season this has been, and I hope it helps that way. But yeah, here's the season recap for you. F1 tested in Bahrain this past year instead of Spain, with the Red Bull setting the pace in the face of a disappointed Mercedes. The season also kicked off in Bahrain with Lewis taking the first win of the season after Max was asked to give back the place, having overtaken Lewis by going off track. Next, we headed to Imola, where the title rivals touched for the first time this season, going into turn 2 on the very first lap as Max overtook Lewis, pushing him wide over the curbs. While Max went on to get his first win of the season, Lewis recovered from P8, having beached his car at Tosa to finish P2 after the red flag restart brought out by the terrifying accident between Valtteri Bottas and George Russell. Lando Norris got his first podium of the season as the two Ferraris finished P4 and P5. In Portugal, Lewis took a commanding victory after the red flag restart caused by Kimi crashing into the back of his Alfa Romeo teammate Antonio Giovinazzi. For round 4, Mercedes and Lewis executed a brilliant two-stop strategy to win the Spanish GP after having lost out on P1 to Max Verstappen at turn 1 on the first lap. At Monaco, shock pole sitter Charles Leclerc failed to start the race due to a driveshaft issue caused by his crash during qualifying. Max Verstappen took an easy win as Karl Lando finished P2 and P3, while Mercedes had a disappointing weekend as Lewis only managed a P7 and a stuck right front tyre ended Valtteri's race in the pits, giving him the award of the longest pit stop ever. In Azerbaijan, Max Verstappen crashed out from a commanding race lead due to a tyre failure with just 5 laps to go. However, it was Sergio Perez who took his second career win after Lewis locked up into turn 1 on the race restart. Sebastian Vettel and Pierre Gasly finished a surprise podium. In round 7, it was Red Bull and Max who outplayed Lewis and Mercedes with a two-stop strategy as the Dutchman passed Lewis on the penultimate lap to take the win. Sergio too finished ahead of Valtteri. At the Styrian GP, Max took a dominant victory as Lewis and Valtteri rounded off the podium places. Max once again won at the Red Bull Ring, this time at the Austrian GP as aero damage caused Lewis to only finish P4. Lando once again finished on the podium even after being handed a 5-second time penalty for pushing Perez wide and onto the gravel at turn 4. At this moment, Max led Lewis by over 30 points in the championship. After having hosted the first sprint race of the season, round 10 at Silverstone saw Lewis and Max come together at Cops Corner, but this time the collision sent Max flying into the barriers. However, even after being handed a 10-second penalty, Lewis went on to win the race from Charles Leclerc, who struggled with engine issues as the tension ramped up towards the end of the race. A wet start in Hungary saw Valtteri and Lance bring out the red flags on lap 1 as they locked up going into turn 1 and wiped out 3 other drivers while also damaging Max Verstappen's car. What was already a crazy race saw Esteban Ocon take his first career victory, held by his teammate Fernando Alonso, who kept a recovering Lewis behind for nearly 20 laps in P5. Sebastian Vettel's post-race disqualification from P2 saw Lewis and Carlos Sainz round up the podium places, while Max only managed a P9. This meant it was Lewis now who led the Drivers' Championship. In what was another crazy race this season, Max Verstappen won a rain-shortened Belgian GP as only half points were awarded for the 2 laps race behind the safety car. George Russell reaped the benefits of what was an absolutely scintillating qualifying performance as he finished P2 in his Williams ahead of Lewis's Mercedes. Round 13 saw Max Verstappen win in a dominant fashion in front of his home crowd at Zandvoort as Lewis finished in P2 more than 20 seconds adrift. The following round in Monza, it was McLaren who took the top honours as Ricciardo led them to a sensational 1-2 after having jumped pole sitter Max Verstappen at the start of the race. However, the title rivals crashed out at the first chicane midway through the race as the stewards found Max to be largely at fault for this incident. In what was another rain-affected race, Lewis took his 100th race win in Sochi after race leader Lando Norris elected to not pit for intermediate tyres as it started to rain towards the end of the race. This allowed Max Verstappen to finish second after a disappointing recovery, having started last due to power unit changes. Carlos Sainz once again finished on the podium for Ferrari. In another damp race at Turkey, Bottas took his first win of the season, holding off Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez as his teammate Lewis Hamilton only managed a P5. However, this was not enough to stop Max from retaking the lead in the Drivers' Championship once again. Round 17 at the Circuit of the Americas provided a spectacular duel between the two title rivals as Max held off a charging Lewis Hamilton to take victory. After having qualified behind Valtteri and Lewis at the Mexican GP, Max took the lead on lap 1 and went on to win after putting in probably the best overtake of the year as he went around both the Mercedes into turn 1 on the opening lap. Sergio Perez secured his first ever podium at his home race, becoming the first Mexican to do so. After having been disqualified on Friday and another 5-place grid penalty due to an internal combustion engine change, Lewis charged through the field over the course of the sprint race and feature race to snatch the Brazilian GP victory in godlike fashion. The two championship rivals nearly came together as Max Verstappen put in a controversial move towards the dying stages of the race to defend from a charging Lewis. Lewis took a dominant victory in Qatar from pole, while Fernando Alonso scored his first podium since his return to F1 after a 2-year hiatus. The penultimate race of the season in Saudi Arabia saw Lewis Hamilton win his third race on the trot to bring himself level on points with Max Verstappen going into the last race of the season as the two title contenders touched more than once during the weekend. And in what was a very controversial end to the season, Max Verstappen took the race win at Abu Dhabi and with it the World Drivers' Championship title on the very last lap of the season after last-minute safety car restart. And that is how, ladies and gentlemen, we have Max Verstappen as the 2021 World's Driver Champion. And now back to the podcast. So let's just cover what has happened in the last week. Vedant, I think because that is I believe that is the more important thing that is going around in the community at the moment, that has been the focus of the community so far, even this weekend. Obviously, Sir Lewis Hamilton was officially knighted at the Windsor Castle this past week. It was a great moment for him and for motorsport fans in general. And then in more news, obviously Mohammed bin Sulayem elected new FIA president. He's a 14-time FIA Middle East Rally champion. But I mean, strong words from a man who just got elected. He said he'll be investigating Lewis for not attending the FIA Gala. And obviously he said, a lot of work to do before the season start, and he's eyeing changes to avoid what happened in Abu Dhabi. But we'll come to that in a minute. I want to get your view on what, the new FIA president said regarding investigating Lewis. And basically he said, Lewis is not going to get away with it, to paraphrase. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's going to be detrimental to the situation that has already been created by what happened in Abu Dhabi? Or do you think that is the right way to do and the right precedent to set since he's the new FIA president, and from here we can have a fresh start regardless of the consequences or what has happened up until 2021 season end?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, since he's the new president, and I mean his first action is probably not going to be investigate and punish Lewis Hamilton, and that won't be right. But I think he has a fresh start, a fresh slate, and to get those sporting regulations and regulate them correctly is going to be a good start, because the sporting regulations for Formula 1 state that the top 3 drivers in the championship have to attend the gala. And I mean, it is not part of a custom, it is part of the sporting regulations of the sport. So
And I
and
understand your point of view, and I have been conflicted myself, but given the reaction we've had from Lewis, from Toto, and everyone in the community, it just seems like just let it go. You want to have a fresh start. 2022 was a fresh start. Let's just forget 2021. When I say
yeah.
I'm not saying forget the spectacular season we have seen, but like just let it go. Just let things simmer down. Let people forget. And when you come back in 22, everybody's gonna be excited. Everybody's gonna be looking forward. I'm almost of the opinion that we don't need a DTS season next season, like for this past season
Yeah.
next year. Like
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want people's emotions to be reignited by watching what happened last year, and have an angry community going into the 2022 season, and the focus being on FIA and the application of rules instead of just enjoying the racing that we're getting on track.
Yeah, that's true. And I mean, Drive to Survive and Netflix won't be able to capture everything in the 10 episodes that they do. So it like anyway it would be a waste, of sorts. But I mean, like another thing I found interesting and strange was that the outgoing president Jean Todt said that we have like that the FIA has been too lenient with the teams, and like for a outgoing president to say that is, I mean, it's weird because he was the one who
Yeah,
was lenient, right?
yeah.
So I mean, it was pretty weird, but yeah, I think whatever happens from 1st January onwards, as you said, like let's just forget 2021 and whatever happened, and yeah, and obviously you can't force Lewis Hamilton and Toto Wolff to attend the gala just days after that horrific
I mean,
incident in Abu Dhabi.
it's like it's like the two sides of the coin, right? Lewis was gracious in his loss at the Abu Dhabi GP. We saw him and his dad go and congratulate Max and his family, and he gave a pretty good, like a really great, not pretty good, but a really great post race interview in not in the pen, but at the podium, but it almost seems like. I wouldn't say it's unsportsmanlike, but it's just like goes to on one hand it goes to show that uh, I just like it's I don't know how to put it, but like okay, let's just use the word sportsmanlike, but it wasn't like very gracious of Lewis to not show up at the gala, but at the same time it just goes to show how much of a loss and how much of hurt there is on Lewis's part, what Lewis is feeling,
Yeah.
that it for someone who's been so gracious, who's been a 7-time world champion, who's been who's been through it all in F1, was unable to get himself to go attend the gala. Like Toto Wolff, honestly, I don't mind that much. Obviously, they want to win and everything like that, and he's reeling from the loss too. But seeing Lewis Hamilton not show up there, like I said, it's like two sides of the coin. On one hand, it kind of seems like it's not the most gracious thing to do, but on the other hand, it just goes to show how much of an effect the season has had and the way it ended on Lewis Hamilton. And what is? I mean, this conversation now that Lewis might not come race in 2022, and I would say that's, in my
Yeah.
opinion, that's rubbish, and I wouldn't give any any airtime to it. In my opinion, Lewis's motto is "Still I Rise," and I think if Lewis, for who, like he's been a 7-time world champion. It isn't the first time he lost a championship to an FIA call. And he's been through everything, and if he wants to prove that nothing's going to stop him, he's going to be back in 2022, and I think that's what's going to happen. So if people are out there speculating whether this is going to stop Lewis from participating, let me tell you, Lewis's presence on the grid is more than just a driver. He's an icon, and there's more that he does than just being a driver or a 7-time world champion on the grid. There's a lot more that he does in the background for the sport and for the people associated with them. So losing Lewis would be a big oof for F1, and I don't think anyone's going to let that happen, including Lewis.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we talked about this in this middle of the season when Lewis's contract talks were the talking point, that even if Lewis Hamilton walks away from the sport in a proper, dignified retirement, it would be a proper loss to the sport. And to walk away from the sport like this in such fashion is going to be pretty, damaging for the sport, to say the least.
And we've seen how Lewis has bounced back from his 2016 loss against Nico Rosberg. And if I am to predict anything at this moment, I'd say Lewis is gonna wrap up the championship halfway through next season, if anything. If he's to turn this around, that's what's gonna happen. And it just goes to show why Lewis pushes so hard to wrap up the championship as soon as possible, because you don't want to leave things to chance or to FIA per se. But so on that note, obviously on Wednesday, FIA set up a panel to investigate the incident in Abu Dhabi properly, and following that, on Thursday morning, Mercedes withdrew their intention to appeal, saying that saying that it was for the sport and they respect Max and Red Bull, and it's not their fault. It's FIA's. It is FIA who they are angry with and who they don't agree with. But again, they said that nothing's good gonna come out of it, and obviously FIA setting up that panel goes to show that hopefully there will be some positive changes coming out of it in regards to the rules and regulations. So we'll keep an eye on that. But Toto Wolff did not refrain from saying that they had a strong legal case outside the ICA, which is in the FIA jurisdiction. Obviously, this case would have gone to like a normal court and not to CAS, as everybody was thinking it would. Like the only thing that CAS has is they only look into doping charges in regards to any incidents with that come under the jurisdiction of the FIA. But other than that, CAS does not have any jurisdiction over FIA proceedings or events at all. But yeah, I mean, I think that was the right call from Toto, and this is what we had expected, after what happened in Abu Dhabi. Even though they had protested, this is what everybody was expecting, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's right. They were hurt, but at the end of the day, that even if they went to appeal, it would not have changed the result. But more than that, they don't want to win that championship like that.
Yeah.
Even though they want the championship, but they would not have wanted to win that championship like that.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think this is what we were all hoping for. Not because we wanted Max to win, but because it just seems to be the right thing to do for from like a global perspective for the sport. For F1, for Mercedes, and for everyone else involved with the sport. But yeah. So that has been really the Abu Dhabi, aftermath. But yeah, again, coming back to the fact that people have been speculating that Lewis might not come back, and obviously all of those rumors start from the fact that Toto indicated that Lewis Hamilton is disillusioned by it all, and he fears, and Toto fears that he might not come back, which is a strong statement to make, knowing the fact that how close Toto and Lewis work. But even then, at least I am quick to dismiss. I might be wrong, but those are my thoughts. What about you, Vedant?
Yeah, I mean, Lewis Hamilton might be, he's definitely sad and disillusioned by it all, and Toto might be right to fear that Lewis won't come back. But I think all Lewis Hamilton has to do is come to day one of testing in 2022, right? Before that, he does not have to make any statement. He does not have to make any media appearance. He does not have to tell the world that, hey world, I'm going to stay in Formula 1. If he shows up on day one, that means it's game on. And we might not hear from him till then, but I certainly think that he'll come back. He'll continue.
And I think, so far, Lewis has been, subjected to a lot of obviously, it's a bipartisan community almost. There's people who really wanted Lewis to win, get his 8th, and there are people who didn't want Lewis to get his 8th and who are, bored of him winning and, bored of Mercedes domination and all of that stuff. But I think what has happened in Abu Dhabi and, the fact that Mercedes let go of the protests and whatnot, I think, there'll be a larger part of the community now that will want Lewis to win his 8th. Or, if Lewis is winning, they'll spur him on instead of, maybe pull him back or try to do so through social media or whatever, however people are involved. And I feel, if Lewis were to win his 8th next year, I think it would be celebrated way more than if he would have won it this year. And I mean, that's not to take away
Yeah, I
from the fact
mean,
that an eighth would have been an eighth, but I'm just saying, from a outsider perspective point of view, I feel it'll be a much more celebrated eighth than next year if he wins than it would have been this year. But it's all speculation, obviously.
yeah, absolutely. The neutral fans would celebrate the eighth even more, and like it would be a nice revenge arc, redemption arc of sorts.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so let's talk about the post-season Abu Dhabi test for a little bit. 18-inch wheels have got good feedback from the drivers after the Abu Dhabi test. Um, the wheels by themselves don't look that great to me, but when you put them on a car, they do look pretty exotic, and especially with the LEDs on, I think they look really great. And I'm kind of looking forward to it. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean the narrow profile of the tires and the sort of rims that they'll be having, I think they look good. And with the proposed car that we are going to have, it is, I mean, it's going to be a very changed Formula One and very futuristic looking car. But I'm not sure about the LEDs quite yet.
I
I
mean,
think
we've seen
they'll,
LEDs, in other racing series during night races, 24 hours of Le Mans and stuff like that to indicate the car number and things like that. So
yeah,
it might
but
be a good addition.
they indicate the car number on the side,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And I mean, I think the way they'll be using LEDs on the wheel covers might be advertisements.
Yeah.
I mean, if LEDs are mandated, and the regulations come in that you can't advertise, you only have to put in your number for night races or whatever, then it's fine. But if advertisements come in, if sponsorship coming on those wheel covers, I think it would be in bad taste.
Yep, yep. And obviously, the wheel, those LEDs can also be used to showcase driver data, car data and things like that. But yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll obviously see them in free practice sessions and testing before we see them in a race. So we'll have some idea going into the very first weekend next year. But obviously, Pato Award got his postseason test for McLaren. Finally, we saw him in the car, and Pato Award was just on cloud nine after his test.
Yeah.
He was so excited. He said it was a rocket, and he believes that he has a maximum of 2 years to move into F1 and will do everything he can to make it happen. So I'd say Daniel Ricciardo has some competition finally, and even
Yeah,
Lando Norris has some competition for being the favorite son to Zach Brown now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's almost surprising because before the test, when Pato was, when the test got finalized after his win, he was like, okay, yeah, I'll get the test, I'll do the test, but I don't think I'll be moving to Formula One or, planning a path to Formula One as such. I'm happy in IndyCar and I love it here. But I think when you drive a Formula One car, you can't let it go, right? And yeah, I think that's what appealed to Pato, that he now wants to be in Formula One.
Yep. Goes to show, Zach Brown, more team principals need to manage the business like Zach Brown. And I have said this so many times on this podcast, but I don't know who's listening out there. Obviously, and Bottas and Joe got their first proper run with Alfa Romeo. And George with Mercedes once again. Obviously, George has tested for Mercedes in the past, but this time it was different. Like George Russell said himself, this time he was technically a Mercedes driver, knowing the fact that he'll be not in that car, but in a Mercedes next year. Schwartzman tested for Ferrari and Haas, Yuri Vips for Red Bull, and Lawson for AlphaTauri, Nick De Vries for Mercedes, Logan Sargent for Williams. Now that was a good one, I feel, for a lot of American fans, and Piastri for Alpine. But yeah, I mean, not a lot of news coming out of that, obviously, because it's a young drivers test, and we also had mule cars, for those who missed out, mule cars who were testing, the 2022 tires, the 18-inch tires, which were mostly driven by current drivers across the grid for their respective teams. And obviously we also had the F2 postseason test. Jehan Darwal and Dennis Hogger will be driving for Prema as they tested for Prema during the postseason test, and Jehan Darwal was the top runner in the very last session of the F2 test. Now, obviously, Dennis Hogger had a scintillating season in F3, right? He just won the way Piastri won in F2. And obviously, it's great to see Jehan get picked up by the top team in junior category racing. So it's going to be a great battle, hopefully, next year between the two Prema drivers for the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Jehan has worked with Prema in F3, so they knew his quality. F2 only has, 2 seats per team, so Jehan got dropped more, like, probably because of that. But then again, for Prema to go for Jehan and not anyone else like Liam Lawson or Marcus Armstrong, who they have, who Prema have raced with in F3 as well. So that goes to show that Jehan has had a pretty decent 2 seasons and is showing promise. Absolutely.
Yep, and then Jack Doohan in his UNI Virtuosi was fastest of Dragovic in MP Motorsport. It was that like, when was that? I don't remember. But yeah, Liam Lawson tested for Carlin with Logan Sargent, and then HWA Race Lab will be replaced by Van Amersfoort Racing, or VAR if you want to call it that, next season in F2. It'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how these guys. I mean, obviously they have been racing in the junior categories, but it'll be interesting to see how they step up, their operations as they come into F2.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's, as always, Formula 2 testing. We couldn't get much out of it because we don't follow it that much, and it's again just a post-season test to test out your new potential recruits. But yeah, Jehan Daruvala in a Prema is giving us big hopes for next season.
Yep, fingers crossed. Hopefully he'll take that championship finally, and we'll have a single-seater world champion from India. And,
Yeah, and I mean, with those Red Bull Junior Red Bull Academy ties, and if they continue, it is going to be a massive win for him for 2023.
Absolutely.
Massive potential,
Absolutely. Yep. All right, so that is all that has happened in the last week. Now let's dive right into our actual season review, where we talk about how we feel about things that have happened over the past season and how we feel about the people who have done it. So yeah, let's dive right into it. Max versus Lewis, Max versus Lewis, Sir Lewis Hamilton. You have got to be careful about that. Finished 1-14 times. And another stat for you, obviously we're not talking about McLaren right now, but McLaren was the only team this season to have a Team 1-2 finish. How crazy is that, with the Mercedes and Red Bull dominating the entire season? Obviously, Max had 10 wins this season, which is just insane. And then, another 10 poles, 8 podiums. And the only time he finished a race outside the top 2 was when he finished P9 in Hungary, I think, after crashing, after Bottas crashed into him, basically. So crazy there. But yeah, Max was definitely overly calm throughout the season, but that final lap was too tense for him, After, when we were looking back at the post-race interviews, we found out that he had a cramp in his leg as he was trying to overtake Lewis Hamilton and was hurting, just pushing the throttle, which is... it's hard to imagine how you would manage that situation. I've never had my leg cramp when I'm driving a car, so it's hard to relate at all on any level.
Yeah.
But and Max was also named the best driver in the Team Bosses poll for the first time. But you have to give it to Lewis Hamilton for a sensational comeback after Mexico to be in the position that he was. It was some 7-time world champion material stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We all thought, and by we all I mean me, that Max has wrapped up this championship by, I don't know, Sochi or...
Yeah, because after Mexico City, the sentiment was he's going to win in Sao Paulo, and then there's not enough races for Lewis to win unless Max has like a DNF or something, because all Max has to do is finish P2 the entire time.
Yeah, absolutely. And for Lewis to come back from that, and yes, Mercedes had the fastest car towards the back of the season, but for Lewis Hamilton to make use of it and to, that race in Sao Paulo, sensational. And he dominated in Qatar. Obviously, Saudi was Saudi and Yas Marina were different stories. But yeah, for Lewis Hamilton to fight back throughout the season was pretty special. And I mean, we have always seen Lewis dominate seasons and not get, not fight basically. But this season, it just showed that Lewis Hamilton, what material he is made of,
I mean, it
what
did
quality
seem,
he has.
it did seem at the start of the season that both Lewis and Mercedes were struggling to, struggling. By struggling, I don't mean largely, just like a little bit to get into that zone where the car, the team, and the driver were all working in synergy, like we've seen them work throughout all of these years, and that only came together after towards like the second half of the season. Really, because we saw Mercedes pull off a great strategy in Spain, like we said in the recap. But then they had the incident with Bottas. They had the incident in France where they lost out to Red Bull on the same strategy that they executed a couple of races ago. So they were definitely struggling a little bit. And even though Lewis won the very first race, it didn't seem like they had the outright pace to beat them, or the outright operational capacity to beat Red Bull on any given day, whereas Red Bull looked like a well-oiled machine from the very start of the season. But it seemed like they started to fall apart a little bit towards the end.
Yeah, and I mean, even Lewis Hamilton made a few mistakes in the start of the season. His offing in Imola and Baku. So yeah, pretty weak start, but what a comeback they have made.
Absolutely,
Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton.
And then Red Bull versus Mercedes. This stuff is. I feel like Christian Horner and Toto Wolff should get a TV soap for themselves, like a drama series, just Christian Horner and Toto Wolff. I mean, what will be amazing, like how how Nico Rosberg is doing his podcast these days. If Christian Horner and Toto Wolff start a podcast after they retire, I will be the number one listener of that podcast, even though I hate their drama so much.
Yeah, I mean, it got weird at points, and it got definitely not good for the sport at a lot of points throughout the season. And I mean, I am not a fan of either of them, but I especially was not happy with any of it throughout the season.
Yeah. But the question is, we saw Red Bull and Mercedes go head-to-head the entire season. But the question is, who is the better wingman, Valtteri or Lewis? Sorry, Valtteri or Sergio?
Valtteri or Checo. God. Yeah. I mean, well, Checo Perez never had the duty of a wingman before this season, right? And I think this season he just showed what, I mean, yeah, I would call him the better wingman.
But 4 seasons, 4 championship wins for Valtteri and Lewis compared to 1 for Sergio and Max.
But Valtteri and Lewis had arguably the best car and did not have a lot of competition. And I mean, I'm stating the truth, man.
I mean, I don't know.
Sergio Perez did.
I'd say Valtteri is the better wingman. I mean, obviously, Sergio is kind of taking the cake because of what he did in the last race, but.
I mean, not only the last race, his fight with Lewis at Turkey, and his like helping Max throughout the season with the toes and holding Lewis back in France. So I think Valtteri Bottas could not do all these things this season at the level that maybe we are used to seeing him. But yeah, Sergio Perez did take the cake this season. Absolutely.
Yeah, I guess that is a fair point. But yeah, I don't know. Like it's hard to recap a Mercedes and Red Bull season. They've been scintillating the entire season. Like we said, Red Bull started off really great, but kind of fell apart towards the end, and Mercedes did the other way around. But you got to say one thing. I think at the start of the season, especially Imola and I think Baku and whatnot. Not Baku, but a couple other races, we said that Lewis definitely gets lucky a lot more often than his fellow drivers almost. But you've got to say it. It was really hard this time around at Abu Dhabi. Finally, kind of running out of luck. When he needed the most, but you have to give it to both of them for putting up the show that we had. But talking about putting up a show, McLaren versus Ferrari, oh my god. to all the McLaren fans out there. I don't know what happened with them. I just don't know what happened towards the end of the season. But I am so glad Ferrari made a comeback this year. And I think, for a lot of Ferrari fans, Matteo Binotto finally, what's the word?
Yeah, he redeemed himself.
Yeah, redeemed
basically.
himself. Finally redeemed himself after, especially the 2019 engine saga that they had. So
Yeah.
that's great. And I feel, I feel a lot of Ferrari fans are very excited and expectant of what's to come next year, and they're rating Ferrari very highly. I'm like, guys, you're just setting up yourself for disappointment. The more you expect from
Yeah.
Ferrari, the worse it gets. And trust me on that one, because been there, done that, and all things alike. But yeah, and yeah, definitely, I'm looking forward to what Ferrari has to do. And we've seen Ferrari test whatever developments they've been doing for the 2022 car in some way or the other on the 21 car itself at different points. We know they were testing brakes and brake ducts, I think, at one point, and some floor bits or
Yeah.
something like that. So it'll be interesting to see where Ferrari come out, and I think Matteo Binotto said to Charles Leclerc after the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, I think, is like, we're gonna have fun next year or something like that. So it seems like the Ferrari camp is happy, and they're expecting some great results next year, even if it's not the top step at the end of the season. I'm kind of looking forward to it. But what happened to McLaren? Are there any answers? Because I haven't heard anything from Andrew Seidel. I haven't heard anything from Zach Brown, and we haven't heard anything from Lando or Daniel either about why McLaren have had such a bad run. Obviously, they got quite unlucky during the triple header, but it just didn't seem like they were ever really there almost.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, McLaren themselves never made a good progression throughout the season in terms of development and, development and all that stuff. But I think the fact that Ferrari made that, brought in that engine upgrade and were developing their car consistently throughout the season, like bits here and there. I mean, Ferrari were definitely the stronger team in the second half of the season, and a more consistent performance. They were putting in more consistent performances. McLaren were good in the first half, but yeah, they definitely fizzled off the second half and were nowhere. Be it luck, be it bad car development, but yeah.
But you have to give it to Carlos Sainz. That man set that Ferrari on fire. He had
Yeah.
4 podium finishes throughout the season. And to beat Charles Leclerc in his first season with Ferrari, we've heard from so many drivers that it's very hard to, integrate yourself with the team. It's a different environment, there are different expectations, they operate in a different way, this, that, and the other. But Carlos Sainz was there and thereabouts from the very get-go, and he outperformed Charles Leclerc towards the end of the season. And obviously, Leclerc had a few incidents, he got unlucky, whatnot, but Carlos Sainz came out on top over the course of a season, all things equal.
Yeah.
After 22 races, Carlos Sainz beat Charles Leclerc, and I think there is talks going on now with Ferrari that they might extend Carlos's contract with a 1+1 option.
Contract.
So Carlos will not only be there by the end of 2022, but he'll be there for sure in 2023 with an option to extend till 2024. So bad news for Mick Schumacher, I guess.
Yeah, well, I mean, Carlos Sainz absolutely deserves that, contract extension. The way his work ethic, we all obviously know the Sainz family work ethic, as it is called, but the way he performed in that Ferrari, and as you said, integrated himself with the team, and he was definitely the best new joinee per se, and yeah, absolutely absolutely deserving P5 in the world in the Drivers' Championship.
And to beat Lando again.
Yeah.
What about that? But yeah, obviously, Lando has been progressively getting better across the 3 seasons he's been in Formula 1, and I think there was a post from McLaren that said, how many points Lando is going to score in 2022, and Randeep Singh, who's the head of strategy at McLaren, said 215.5. And then
Yeah.
he was like, you could have just asked me, just simple linear regression. So great stuff from McLaren and the people there, having a little bit of banter. But obviously you respect. We at least I am expecting the world from Lando. And like I've said earlier, Lando is my 2023 world champion. That's what I'm expecting in a couple of years. I think next year's gonna be a bit rough. Maybe McLaren might not be up there challenging for first place, but I think 2023 is where it's at for Lando and Daniel. But talking about Daniel, uh, he had a first rough season at Renault. He's had a first
Yeah.
rough season at McLaren. What do we expect out of him next year? Because looking back at this year, there wasn't a clear progression in pace. Obviously he's a bit closer to Lando towards the end of the season, but it was really
Yeah.
it just varied every 4 or 5 races on how he was doing. And I think the biggest disappointment for him was being off the pace by a whole second at Monaco.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we saw in the latest YouTube video that F1 put out that he was saddest about not performing in Monaco. So yeah, I think Daniel Ricciardo has a lot of work to do, but he knows what he has to do. And I mean, we can just and I mean, we have seen him get more serious throughout the season, I suppose, and not like his seriousness is evident that he wants to work and he wants to perform for the team, perform for himself, obviously. And yeah, I mean, this season was pretty tough for him, but we'll see.
Yep.
It should be a good one next year.
Yeah, hopefully. But I think the most disappointing, like the team that I was most disappointed with this season was AlphaTauri. Given the potential they showed on raw pace during preseason testing and throughout the season, especially in the hands of Pierre Gasly, I'm just disappointed that they didn't have a podium, or they had one podium, but they didn't have more podiums, or they didn't get a race win like Alpine did. And the fact that they lost out to Alpine in the constructors championship, they equaled their best constructors finish. And obviously most teams have more points this season than ever before, like teams like AlphaTauri, because uh, you know there haven't been so many races in a long time or ever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel AlphaTauri left a lot on the table, and even Pierre Gasly too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Pierre Gasly was sensational in most of the qualifying sessions, but he always somehow, did not quite have the race pace at some events. Obviously, he had good race pace at a lot of the races. He finished fourth and fifth a lot, but yeah, I mean, again, they did not have that consistency and that operational effectiveness that we were expecting from them. And obviously, Yuki Tsunoda being in his rookie season left a lot on the table, and after Bahrain, he sort of fizzled out and started to build on a new base basically. And yeah, but he ended the season on a high P4.
I mean, next season is gonna be make or break for Yuki, right? Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
uh, especially if Sergio does well, there's no reason to let go of Sergio until he wants to retire at Red Bull. So I feel like
Oh yes.
Yuki and Pierre's seat are in danger at AlphaTauri, especially with the number of juniors that are coming up in the Red Bull Driver Academy. Like, what are they gonna do with all those people? They can't just make a third team now to have more Red Bull drivers on the grid.
And I mean, that's
Because also we are hoping for
always
Jehan
been
to be
the
on the grid
case.
soon. So
Yeah,
someone's gotta go.
that's always been the
Someone's
case with
gotta go.
AlphaTauri and Toro Rosso, right? That's always been the case with AlphaTauri,
Yeah.
Toro Rosso. And I mean, Carlos Sainz went away for exactly that reason.
Yep.
He was performing well, but he did not have a place in the Red Bull team. So yeah,
But yeah, Alpine, what a season they've had, in my opinion. Started off really slow, but then, it kept rolling and the highs kept coming every now and then, and just enough, for everyone to be excited about what Alpine was going to do next race. And obviously, with, Fernando's podium towards the end of the season, I think that was the best result that Alpine could have asked for. But, Esteban Ocon definitely redeeming himself. Finally his comeback, win in a way, if you want to say. He didn't have a great season last year, and then this year he's finally, I wouldn't say he's come onto his own. I feel like, in my opinion, he still should have beaten Fernando Alonso, but clearly it's not that easy to beat Fernando even now.
But well, he beat Fernando Alonso in the qualifying head-to-head and became the first man to do so since Lewis Hamilton back in 2007. And we have had Felipe Massa and Kimi Raikkonen up against Fernando Alonso. So that, goes on to show a lot.
Yeah.
Basically. But yeah.
Yep. And then, sorry.
Yeah, Ocon, so personally, I have always been, sort of half opinion about him. But yeah, this season, I think he impressed me. And I found his season pretty good. And yeah, I'm quite excited for next season. Basically.
Yeah, but it's just worrying for me. I feel like Renault, Alpine have been stuck in that weird P5, P6 for a long time now. And it just doesn't seem they have the momentum to get ahead. Like obviously, towards the end of the season, they had some pace going into the Middle East races, but they just don't have the pace throughout the season, and that's what we have seen from them for like 4 or 5 seasons now. And I just don't know. And even like from a development point of view, it just doesn't seem like they have what it's going to take for them to push closer to the top 2 or top 3 teams.
Yeah, once again, as you said, they have been stuck, and the worst part is they have been putting in a lot of money. The Renault group has been putting in a lot of money. Till the cost cap.
Since you brought this up, Renault group putting in a lot of money. They don't even make like real high performance cars per se, like like you know what I'm saying, right?
Well,
like even their Alpine has like a 4-cylinder engine.
Yeah, it's not a high performance car. It's a small sports car.
The next high performance car I think is the Renault Megane RS or something, Cup Sport or something like that. So if you're really thinking about it, I don't really know how to make sense from a business point of view, but I'm glad to have another team on the grid, but I'm just saying it doesn't make sense to me a whole lot. But I don't understand that much about their business or any of that in general. But yeah.
Well, yeah, let's just so, because I think Fernando Alonso joined, and he stated when he rejoined F1 and joined Alpine, that this is a base. He wants 2021 so that he can create a base for the next season and get to grips with Formula 1 and the next gen of cars, and develop the car along with be along with the development of the car. And yeah, I can't frame the sentence right now, but yeah, let's hope for a good next season, because they all are hoping for it. And as we know, a lot can change. So yeah, maybe all their efforts for the last five seasons give rewards for them in one season.
They have a new chassis next year, unlike this year.
Yeah, after 3 seasons. Yeah,
for like 3-4 seasons now. So they'll finally
since
have a new
2019.
chassis. So it'll be an actual new car next year instead of what it has been for so long. But yeah,
absolutely.
I feel Alfa Romeo is also in the same mode. They've been stuck in that P8, P9 position for the longest time. In the bottom 3. I think the last time they had a great season was back during the days of Ralf Schumacher, 2004-5, when they finished like P4, P5 in the constructors or something like that.
The BMW days.
Yeah, the BMW days. But Alpha just nowhere really. They had flashes of pace. They were up there in the P11, P12s a lot, but I don't know. Again, from development point of view, like what is going wrong? It's not like the Ferrari engine was as bad as last season. So it's just hard to put a finger on what's going on in that team with Fred Vasseur leading it.
Yeah, I think the race put out an article that said that the most improved car from 2020 to 2021 is in fact the Alfa Romeo. But
how much of that is down to, was that like on pace, and if it is on pace, how much of it is down to the Ferrari engine?
Yeah, I don't remember the article like very well, but I think at the end of the day, their operational issues and just the fact that Antonio Giovinazzi was going into Q2 and Q3 quite often, but was never, the race pace was not quite there a lot. And yeah, I mean, they had a lot of issues in the middle of the season. They incurred a lot of unnecessary penalties in the middle of the season. So yeah, that was a shame. And I mean, honestly, Alfa Romeo were the one team we were hoping would make a lot of progress. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, with Williams getting those extra points, and the other teams making a lot more progress, they just got stuck.
Absolutely. But yeah, Kimi obviously had some moments of brilliance and some moments of the other end of brilliance.
Yeah.
With crashing into Antonio and then Sebastian and then spinning out in Jeddah, I think was it? No, Abu Dhabi or whatever.
Abu
But
Dhabi,
yeah,
yeah.
not having the best season, but apparently in the season predictions video that you were talking about earlier, Kimi knew before the season started that he will be
Yeah.
leaving F1, and I said that I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure I
he,
said that
he
at the start of the season, like when Kimi announced his retirement that he'll be leaving. I'm like, there's no way Kimi did not know, prior to this starting this year, and it's
yeah, I think even when he made that announcement, he did say that I have known this since winter.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know why everyone is so surprised.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, talking about Aston Martin, disappointing season. Lawrence Stroll will not be happy at all. I hope everybody retains their job at Aston Martin after what has been such a disappointing season. I will be praying for Otmar Snavzar as he starts development for the 2022 season, and hopefully Otmar will keep his job next year. But yeah. But Vettel got 2 podiums, even though one got struck off. So, a couple highs there. And I feel Sebastian Vettel had quite a few good results. I think even in Monaco, he finished like P5 or something. And then even towards the end of the season, I think Lance and Sebastian had a few good points finishes. So, it goes to show that, they were also reeling from the same issues from regulation changes that Mercedes were. But Mercedes were able to get on top of it, like way quicker, while Aston, basically struggled with it even
Yeah.
towards the end of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, for me, apart from Vettel's, one podium and his numerous humanitarian efforts, I almost forgot to write down Aston Martin in our notes. So, yeah, I mean, apart from Vettel, it was a no-show season for me. We did not hear from Otmar a lot. We did not hear
I think
from,
the only time
their
we heard from Otmar was when it was rumored that he was leaving Aston Martin.
yeah. and in the starting of the season when
Oh yeah,
they
that's
were
right, that's
accusing
right, yeah,
FIA of
that's right.
making those regulation changes, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, as you said, pretty disappointing. Like, they were fourth in the championship last season, and that one rule change absolutely put them off the list, and
But
put them eighth
but at the same
or
time, you can
seventh.
argue if they would not have done what they did last year, all that controversy, they would have been in a better place with the car philosophy they had 2 years ago for this season. They would have been better placed for it because they didn't have that Mercedes. They were closer to the Red Bull philosophy than the Mercedes philosophy a couple years prior. So you can argue that.
Yeah.
It
Well,
was really
tit for
there
tat, I guess.
ongoing, and things like that. But yeah, Williams, I think they had a better season than they could have hoped for, and I feel the high point of Williams' season was the George Russell qualifying in Belgium in wet conditions. That qualifying lap is probably the best qualifying lap we've seen all season from any driver, across the grid.
Yeah, absolutely. To put that Williams in P2 in those conditions was absolutely sensational. And I mean, George Russell has shown moments of brilliance throughout the season. I think he has qualified the he reached Q3 in a lot of the races, and he reached Q2 in almost 75% of the races, I guess. I don't remember the number exactly,
But a
but yeah.
disappointing end to the season for George Russell, getting beaten by Nicky twice in qualifying.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean,
Nicky
he
also
could
sent
not
like a
maintain his
cheeky-
100%
yeah.
record, yeah.
Nicky also sent a cheeky radio messages like, "You can't even beat me in qualifying. How are you gonna beat the greatest of all time?" or something like that in a Mercedes. So a little bit of banter there. But hopefully next season with Alex Albon and Nicholas Latifi, we'll get some more consistent results from Williams, and hopefully they'll make a step forward at least towards the midfield of the grid. Haas right off, I feel like both the Haas drivers, like obviously Nikita didn't have a great season, but I think Mick didn't have a great season either with the number of crashes he had. And I think there was a graphic or something that was put out by someone, I don't remember who, on Instagram, and it said that Haas apparently incurred the most damage, because of incurred the highest amount of financial loss through car damages throughout the season. And I think both Nikita and Mick shared like 4 or 5 shunts each throughout the season. So it just goes to show either they didn't have a great season or the car is just so bad, like either or. But I don't think you can really read into any of those performances until Haas have a car that they say is a benchmark for them at least.
Yeah. But I mean, the fact that they had the highest number of financial, loss because of the damage is a big blow, because they finished last in the championship. They already have a low budget. They finished last in the championship. They'll get the least prize money. And with all that damage they occurred, their budget for next seasons becomes smaller and smaller.
Yep.
So even though they'll have a fresh car for next season and fresh slate for next season, there's a lot of work to be done, and they probably won't have that much of a budget for it.
Exactly. And I'm surprised Gene Haas is still in the sport after all the speculation that was there towards the start of the season. When it was announced that Nikita Mazepin will be joining the team and Uralkali will become the title sponsor. So who knows what Gene Haas is planning to do. But yeah, that's most of our review, and there's a few things that we're going to talk about now. But before we get into those talking points, just a few, I guess, like driver of the day things that we're going to talk about and exchange. So yeah, best driver for you, Vedant, apart from the top 2.
I mean, I think it has been Lando Norris.
What? Not Carlos Sainz? It's got to be Carlos Sainz.
No. Yeah, I mean, see, for me, it's you're confusing me now.
So it is Carlos Sainz. All right, let's go ahead. Best driver that changed teams, rookie or return. Again, Carlos Sainz. All right,
that's Carlos Sainz.
Most improved driver.
That's Norris, I guess, because
got to be Fernando. He had no points last season.
Okay, let's take him.
Come on. Or Sebastian Vettel.
Yeah, Sebastian Vettel.
I mean, it's weird to give that to a 4-time world champion, but there's a strong case for that, considering his performance last season. Best individual drive.
Well, I think that goes to Lewis Hamilton's Brazil weekend.
100%.
Yeah.
And then your favorite Grand Prix of the season.
Well, my favorite Grand Prix of the season. Now that's a tricky one, but I think I really enjoyed. Which one did I enjoy?
Wow, thanks.
Imola.
Okay.
Yeah, I enjoyed Imola a lot because the incidents throughout the rain, but yeah, I guess I don't remember a lot, but yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be Monza for me. A McLaren 1-2, the title rivals crashing out. It's got to be that for me. Monza was my favorite Grand Prix of the season. But yeah, and some of the moments of the season that we had this year, obviously, Bottas and Russell crashing out in Imola, Verstappen crashing in Baku, Max and Lewis colliding in Silverstone, Hungary lap 1 wipeout, Spa, which was basically not a race, and obviously Italy, like I just said right now, Russia, Norris getting robbed, Saudi, the boiling point of the season amongst the 2 title contenders, and then Abu Dhabi's last lap fiasco. Which amongst these would you like to see again, Vedant, next season? Which amongst these would
I can go for Italy, the Monza race,
I mean, you have to have some respect, Lewis walked away from that thanks to the halo, but you can't choose that, that's a safety hazard. Come on.
Okay. Well, I was talking about Ricciardo's win, but yeah, sure.
I mean, you didn't put that in the moments of the season, so you can't choose that.
I put it in the moments of the season. Max Lewis crashed, Ricciardo wins.
Oh, okay. I guess I didn't read it. My bad. But yeah. Anyway, but talking points, Vedant, this season track limits was a huge issue from the very first race. How do you see this going forward? What should FIA do to take care of this particular issue? Because I think the issue is like the reason they can't have track limits throughout the entire circuit is because they can't monitor so many turns and everything, which is why they have to pick and choose where they'll be monitoring the track limits. But where do you see, how do you see, or what is the solution to this in your opinion?
I think, I guess the white line is a pretty solid definition of the track limits debate, right?
Yeah.
But then again, you give them leeway when the corners are fast because you want a fast car and you want exciting qualifying laps. So there needs to be a gray area, I guess. But for me, I think the white line should remain the white line. And if you can go fastest through that tight section within those white lines, then you are the best driver on the grid.
I don't know if FIA can do something like the VAR technology that there is in soccer or football, whatever you want to call it. But yeah. And then overtaking outside the track, I think that again has to do with gaining an unfair advantage and track limits and whatnot. But we've seen varied calls throughout the entire season, and then I think it also ties into the fact that pushing your competitor off the track. And I feel like we've said, if you push a competitor off the track and if it's asphalt, if there's runoff, then you don't get penalized as long as you don't touch. But if you run someone off into the gravel, then you are penalized, like we saw in Austria for Checo and Lando.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, once again, this leads to like the next point, FIA's inconsistency throughout the season. The way FIA have treated track limit, the overtaking violations basically has been pretty inconsistent. We saw it in Brazil and Saudi, and Abu Dhabi lap 1. So it's been pretty inconsistent all season. And yeah, we can just hope that the reforms that FIA desperately need right now will help them.
Absolutely. And then again, talking about FIA, the safety car and red flag debate, it seemed like Michael Massey was happy to throw a red flag throughout the entire season except the last race. But I feel red flag does not really take away from the race. Obviously, the red flag debate is much larger, considering the fact that teams are allowed to change parts, tires, and whatnot, and that is something that not all drivers agree with. But then there is also the debate that you are you get an advantage or you get disadvantage even by safety cars, yellow flags, and whatnot. So how is a red flag any different from that?
Yeah, that's true. And
it's a part of strategy. It's a part of going racing in motorsport. And I feel a lot of new fans. And I think there was a post from Harry Kane, alluding to the fact that he did not understand why why Lewis or any other driver would have to pay pay for someone else's crash basically. And I feel that is something that has been integral to motorsports, and that is how it works. And it's a part of going racing, and that is something. What I'm trying to say is basically, why would you change rules for just one particular way of going racing, that is red flags, when all the other aspects of going racing in a similar way, whether it's safety car, yellow flag, and all affect the race in a similar way.
Yeah, I mean, see, the thing is, I think red flag take that issue to an extreme level, because all the cars are stopped, you get a fresh start, and like that, because during a safety car, the cars are still moving. You can the level of advantage is different per se, and the level of disadvantage is different, I guess.
But the thing is, like, the red flag issue was brought into light because of the Saudi Arabia race, which is why it is in conversation right now. And the reason the way it affected in Saudi was because Michael Massey got out the safety car first, and then when people already pitted under the safety car, then he threw a red flag because the barriers had to be repaired.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
this is why the debate is. And taking from that aspect of racing, um, it's the same thing. Under a safety car, if you pit and if you go racing, and if someone has pitted before the safety car under green flag conditions, they usually lose 8 to 10 seconds, depending on how long the pit lane is. And then, but yeah, in a red flag, you basically lose 25 seconds or 20 seconds, whatever the length of the pit stop is, because it's a free pit stop. So yeah, like you said, the issues get amplified. But again, it's a part of racing, and in my opinion,
Yeah, it's a part of racing.
doesn't really
Absolutely.
need to change. Those are things that can happen, and you just have to roll with the punches as they come during the race. But yeah, sprint races. Not a big fan, like we've talked before, and I think I speak for you when I say that
Yeah.
too. And obviously, we have thrown out some ideas out there, but not really looking forward to the sprint races next year either.
Yeah, I mean, but we'll have double the amount, so can't help it.
Yay! What about Max's driving standards? I think they're all right. Obviously, I think he got a little bit, I don't want to say desperate, but a little aggressive towards the end of the season. And I think he'll be a lot more measured, if you want to say, a lot more calculated, since he's scratched that itch of the first championship win, I feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the pressure. I mean, as we said earlier, like however calm you go, the pressure does mount towards the end of the season, and I think that might have gotten to Max, and that incident in Saudi Arabia. The multiple incidents could have been accumulation of it, but overall, Max Verstappen has been aggressive, but fairly decent in my opinion.
I mean,
He
towards the start
even
of the season, it was absolutely pitch perfect. Every move he made, you
yeah,
just could not
exactly,
penalize him, in my opinion. I mean,
exactly,
even the
and
Monza move that he put in, I thought that it was just a racing incident. I wasn't convinced that it was Max's fault.
exactly, and I mean that's the thing. His driving standards have been questioned, and they were questioned towards the start of his career because he was a rookie and like he was boosted into the Red Bull seat too early, and they have been questioned throughout the season because he's actually fighting for the championship right now. But in the end, you will have aggressive drivers in Formula One, and if they are aggressive and fair, you can't say no to it.
Absolutely. And then Red Bull's rear wings, or first obviously it was about the flexi wings, and I think there was some back and forth between Red Bull and Mercedes regarding the Mercedes front wing too, and then obviously they
Yeah.
struggled with DRS actuator issues towards the latter half of the race or latter half of the season. Um, yeah, it was really weird to see. We usually haven't seen teams struggle with DRS issues except whenever they struggle with the DRS not shutting or opening correctly. But
Yeah,
obviously,
the
Red Bull had much larger issues with the DRS.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the way it was behaving, the way the rear wing was behaving when open was pretty weird. But yeah, I think they'll be happy that, that actuator will no longer be used for next season onwards.
Absolutely. But talking about technical stuff, Merc's engine penalties. I feel Mercedes' tactical engine penalty towards the end of the season in Brazil goes to show that you could still possibly win a championship by taking up multiple engine penalties than required, or taking multiple engines than required. Take an engine penalty, go to the back of the grid, maybe not win that race, but win the next three, do it all over again, and then maybe win
Yeah.
15 of the 20 races or something.
Yeah, that, I mean, like before this season, most of the engine penalties that we saw were from technical issues or reliability issues and, precautions. But I think we saw another level of strategy this season that was kind of 4D chess or something. But I think, and that's why Mercedes and their strategy and their plans, they have won 8 constructors championships in a row now. So
Now, obviously,
yeah,
because of the budget cap, there will be obviously some resistance to taking up more and more engines and doing what Mercedes did. But considering the fact that there is an engine freeze pretty much for the next 3 years, you're not really, it's just like
spending on
taking a
the
spare
development,
part,
yeah.
or a spare engine,
Yeah.
and there's only so much cost attached to it. So if the teams can possibly do it, I don't see a reason why it won't heat up towards the end of the season.
Yeah, and I think some drivers have addressed it, I think Fernando or someone was vocal about the way, Mercedes took those penalties towards the end of the season. And I mean, it's like it's again one of those things that, like the red flag issue, it's part of the sport. It's not deliberately hurting anyone, so it might continue.
Yeah, but again, I won't be surprised if like how FIA put in a clause that you can only make changes to the engine for reliability concerns this season. So I won't be surprised if they put in a clause that you can only take an engine if there is a reliability concern for the next race or the next 2 races or whatever. So I won't be surprised if a clause goes into there. But again, I feel like that debate has to be initiated by the teams, and I feel there is a lot more on the plates of each of the teams in the paddock, rather than concentrating on this issue of Mercedes taking up an engine penalty and possibly winning the championship towards the end of the season with that extra boost of power.
Yeah, but now that the teams know that they can do this, I don't think anyone will contend it. They will want to go along with this.
That is one way to look at it. And obviously with this starts the development war as the 2021 season closes. The shift is completely to 2022. There'll be new regulations. There'll be not new power units, but a lot more excitement in the air. New tires, obviously, and new drivers and not new drivers, but drivers in new teams and a few new drivers too. So a lot to look forward to in 2022, and that's all for this podcast. I feel like it's been a kind of a slow podcast, this one. Not very exciting. I feel we all are missing racing. I remember waking up this Friday and being like, when is FP1? And I'm like, shit, the season is over for real. And I was like, well, it's not even been 5 days and I already miss F1. How bad is that, And people have already started posting, day one without F1, day without F1 memes. And what they have been doing, some people have been taking the racing lines across their houses. Some people have been slipstreaming.
I love that.
Yeah, some people have been calling for blue flags in slow-moving traffic. So hopefully you guys are keeping yourselves entertained, and obviously we'll be bringing you more content. And racing doesn't really stop. We do have Formula 1 to start in March, but like I've said before, Formula E and Junior Racing Series start early next year, and obviously we have the Dakar Rally right after New Year's. So
in
guys,
January.
There's a lot of racing to come. Just stay tuned and keep following us. And in other news, Nico Rosberg's team's RXR did beat Lewis Hamilton's X44 in the finale of the inaugural Extreme E World Championship. So yeah, RXR is the first ever team to win an Extreme E Championship, and they will continue to participate next year. So hopefully there'll be more traction for that series. I feel they need a few more races. And they need the season to be a lot more regular and a little less spread out, but hopefully we'll see Extreme E gain some more traction, just like Formula E did after the first couple of seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if they market it like well, and they do have big names right now.
I just feel like there's too much time between the races, so it just
that's true. I mean,
lost.
I think the Jurassic X-Prix this weekend, I never knew that it was happening like a few weeks ago. So yeah, it is. And I think they have had a few calendar changes in the middle of the season, and that did not got advertised as well as the launch itself. So yeah, it's a new series. They always it will inevitably grow for the next few seasons. And yeah, it can only grow, It can.
Yep. And to close out this podcast, before I ask you for your final thoughts, Vedant, we did not go over our season predictions that we made earlier in the year, unfortunately. But I'll just put it out there. Vedant did beat me with the season predictions by a fair margin. Let's just say that. So I'm not very happy about it. But obviously, don't listen to me. Listen to what Vedant says clearly, because he knows it better according to the results of the season prediction. But yeah, Vedant, now coming to it, final thoughts to close out, not just this podcast, but closing out the F1 2021 season review podcast, and the closing out the F1 2021 season for the Motorsport Baithak podcast.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been a great season, as we have said over and over and over again, but there is no denying that, and like, we can't stop saying it. Basically, because it has been. I mean, so for me especially, I followed the 2012 season in the newspaper and in the Sports Star magazine that we used to get in school, but we never really followed Formula One before 2017. And since 2017, Mercedes have been dominating it thoroughly. So to see good racing and competitive racing this season has been pretty exciting for me personally. And I mean, it's not just about Lewis Hamilton not winning an eighth and Max Verstappen winning his first, and McLaren getting a 1-2 after so many years. It's about the everything that made it happen, and we had a pretty good season, pretty good racing, and we can only hope that this continues. Like 2022 probably won't meet the season, won't meet the expectations of the season.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. It's been crazy ever since COVID happened, and we have a new virus. We have a new variant now, Omicron. So things are just getting started to get crazier. So don't count things out. Don't count things out.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But
we never saw a season like 2020 and then 2021 happened.
Yeah,
So yeah, you're right.
But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you about F1 and Formula E and everything else that we talked about on this podcast this year. And obviously, there has been an increased level of scrutiny towards the sport as a fan ever since we started talking like this, recording ourselves and whatnot. But I think through this podcast and just talking about F1 a lot more with people in general, and an increased general awareness of the people about the sport. I have made a few friends. I found a Formula One fan at a seminar late last week. It was like a random seminar. It had nothing to do with sport. It had nothing to do with anything even remotely related to Formula One. But I ended up chatting with someone, and we ended up talking about Formula One somehow. And I have just made friends at the weirdest of places at the weirdest of times because of what has happened this year, and because Formula One has been in the news so much. But yeah, it's been great, and I think the next thing this podcast will be concentrating on will be the Formula India regional in February. That'll be our focus before the F1 season starts off again. Obviously, there'll be Formula E and other things going on, but the Indian Formula regional will be our main focus in the coming months. But once again, Vedant, thank you for joining me, and we'll keep bringing you content every week just like this. We'll catch you on the next one.